Welcome to Portal to the New Earth video and podcast channel. I'm your host, Harlan Emil Gruber, and I'm honored to have today on the show Casey House, a good friend who I've worked together the last few years to illustrate the book Portal to the New Earth, Sound, Sacred Geometry, and Grid Energies for Personal and Planetary Transformation. And he did all of the illustrations for the sacred geometry section of the book, plus made incredible illustrations depicting how all of the portal installations that I made are come about and are constructed. And so I'd like to introduce him. He's a graphic designer and artist and musician living in Ashland, Oregon. He has a passion for ancient archaeology, the evolutionary power of music, and the design science revolution outlined by Buckminster Fuller. He is dedicated to creating educational materials that explores these important topics. He has a YouTube channel called Ancient Presence that explores ancient sites around the world. His music is on Spotify under the name The Living Library. And most importantly, what we're going to talk a lot about today is his new project called Synergetics University. It explores synergetics, design science, biomimicry, and the work of Buckminster Fuller, which can all be applied to create this most beautiful new earth that we're all dreaming about, that is in perfect synergetic, regenerative harmony with all life. So thank you so much for being here today, Casey.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Harlan, for having me on. This is exciting to witness the unfolding of both of our works together. We got to share a lot of the development of our work in the BFI cohort, and yeah, I'm happy to be here with you.
Cool. So yeah, we did meet. It's funny how we met actually briefly 10 years ago in Bali. And then
Yeah.
we became Facebook friends. And so we just got to see our posts if they ever came up, but never really crossed paths in person until a good few years ago. You started posting these incredible graphics that we're going to be looking at today that made, and I was working on writing this book that a big section is on sacred geometry, and I needed to depict all of these various sacred geometries. So I contacted you and we worked together closely for over a year to create all of these illustrations. And, but more importantly, your own work as to why you make these illustrations and why you're so good at it is because of being inspired by Buckminster Fuller, who's also largely responsible for setting me on my life's path and why I wrote the book that you worked on. The whole section is on his work. And so we then, after actually creating all of those illustrations, came together for a 7-month design science studio. It started in August of 2020 and ended March of 2021, where we worked together with it was 144 people from around the world. And so the Buckminster Fuller Design Science Studio is a big part of our connection and a big part of you creating your work, which is directly aligned with Buckminster Fuller's work. It's basically a way to communicate more deeply, because Bucky did a great job, but it's very complex, and it takes people like you to then distill it, disseminate it. So I'm really excited for you to be talking all about that. So yeah, let's first of all, we could dive in because your website's comprehensive, access to all of your different aspects of your art. So yeah,
Yeah.
go if you want. We could start looking at that, and we'll have you guide us through it.
Yeah, sweet. And yeah, just to give like a little bit of background to a lot of this work, I had a deep interest in geometry growing up, but it wasn't. And I've studied graphic design in college and was doing graphic design as kind of like my freelance work after college, and came across a graphic design client of mine that was really interested in my geometry work, and he gave me the book Synergetics by Buckminster Fuller and said, "Hey, I think you might really like this book." And as soon as I received it, I kind of felt like I was receiving like one of the most important books of my life. I had just this visceral feeling when I was flipping through it. And I'm not much of a reader. I don't read a lot of books really. But for some reason, this giant book that is really hard to read for a lot of people really spoke to me. And I started at the beginning and took notes all the way through and read Synergetics 1 and 2 and really soaked it up and felt more inspired by it than I've ever felt by any books in my life. And then I continued on and read a lot of the relevant materials in the field of synergetics, like Amy Edmondson's A Fuller Explanation. And yeah, and then I really started to see how a lot of the work, like finding Synergetics 1 or 2 or any other materials regarding synergetics and design science, they were hard to come across. Like you can't really find them in libraries even. I had to buy mine on Amazon, and they're just they're going out of print and they're not well known by people. And it
I mean,
that
of course, Synergetics is available online, easily
yeah,
accessible, and we'll have a link to it for
yeah,
anyone. And you know, when I was first picked up Synergetics, I talk about this all the time in my formative introductory video interviews. Or it's like you flip through it and you read one section, another, and a synergetic understanding comes out of that. That's hard to describe. And like you say, it's very difficult to read, and probably most people can't. And I don't think I read them cover to cover. I know I dove into them, read good portions of them way back then, and I haven't gone back to study it more. It is so obtuse and so
yeah,
ponderous and a lot to go through, and yet you took the time to do it, and you're then taking this vast amount of understanding and being able to then start to communicate it and give another facet on it, because it really is just looking at how the universe operates. And Bucky did this job that really no one else has done. And so, sorry to digress on that,
yeah.
but it's true that synergetics, and you were saying a lot of the stuff though, and even now today, with resurgence of interest in Buckminster Fuller, it's still extremely fringe. There's not a whole lot. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, please
And there's
continue.
and there's not a lot of like youthful bridges into the work. There's not a lot of um, easy to understand onboarding materials for it. And so I saw this part of universe that wasn't being tended to, and so I took it. I saw that it was important to build and create educational materials that help people understand his work more and further the exploration of design science and synergetics and the shape of space. And so that's what a lot of I started with making graphics, and I spent probably a full year just drawing a lot of the geometries and a lot of the things I was learning, uh, and just posting those to Instagram. And I think I made a post every day for a whole year. And that was kind of the goal I set for myself, was to just make one graphic a day that develops a lot of this. I didn't at that time anticipate that I was going to be writing a book or creating a course around all this. I just saw it as like, there needs to be some cool graphics regarding all of this. But then after like 6 months into doing that, I realized like, hey, this is like, I'm getting enough material here to now like actually make something out of this. And I started putting together a book and putting together a lot of other resources, like a resource library, which we'll see on my website. And now it's been probably 5 or 6 or 7 years that I've been working on all of this. And the textbook is, I've got like probably 250 pages worth on the textbook, and developed some things on the website, developed the resource library, putting together the online course. It's a lot for me to like wrangle all myself. And so it's taken some time, some years. Uh, and yeah, it's a daily practice. It's slowly making progress, and
So yeah, so
reaching
enough.
out to publishers and things like that at some point soon as well.
Yeah,
So
so it's true, and you know, and when I'm thinking about doing these podcasts and videos, I'm thinking about people who might come back to these years in the future to see
mhm.
and I see you as, having the Synergetic, University is about to, you're doing so much and it's about to launch coming soon. And so much of it's there. And I'm so excited actually to dive in and start to see these graphics,
Hey,
because that's the most
yeah,
amazing part of all this. And, thanks for the backstory of how you came to dedicate your life and how we're at this point in time when we're doing this interview in April of 2022, your work is still in this process of all coming together,
yeah,
but well along. And like you say, it takes so many years. Okay, here we go. This is casey-house.com, right? And you can see that
yeah.
clearly. And you can see, all of his design work, photo work, video, music, the Synergetic University, which, like we just said, is not in its full state to be accessed yet, but so much of the material is coming together. And of course, how to, contact. So we'll start at design.
No, let's just go straight into Sinew. A lot of this stuff is in there, so
Okay,
let's just go straight
sounds
in.
good.
Sweet. Yeah, and I just have this little disclaimer, coming soon. All of this is being developed, and funding and support greatly appreciated. Uh, so
Well, it's a good Bucky quote right at the top. I seem to
yeah,
be a verb, an evolutionary process. And it's true. Like, it's like a big part of this work is awakening, and Buckminster Fuller is teaching that. And that's what, is to see that we're like, there's this quote that, like, Bucky says, if I'm doing what the universe wants me to do, I don't have to worry about anything else. He was talking about like money and that, but just aligning. Okay, so here we go. It's a multimedia education experience in design science, synergetics, and the works of Buckminster Fuller. We facilitate conversations and educational experiences that catalyze humanity's intelligent and considerate participation in Earth's ecosystems. Exactly. Aligning with nature, aligning with the universe, aligning with all of life, taking a step beyond just human centric needs.
yeah.
All right, you can take over if you want to read this or just talk about what we're seeing here, because I'm excited to get into looking at your graphics, which I know
Yeah.
will be coming up. But this
Yeah.
is
So
really important.
yeah, we don't need to read the whole website, but I guess this kind of gives like a basic introduction to like why all of this is important to me. And I think uh, that reason is by understanding these fundamental uh, design principles of nature, we can start to design a world that works for everybody. And I think that's why this book spoke to me so clearly, is that I think he outlines a very clear path that we as humanity can take to creating more life support using less resources. So,
Should we look at what is synergetics or more about Sinu?
uh, click what is synergetics. It'll just bring you further down on this
Okay,
page. Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess we don't have to read. If anybody's interested in like learning more about all this, you can come to the website and check all of this out. But one thing I've really tried to do with this website is like, yeah, if you scroll now, hover over those balls right there.
right.
Yeah. Uh, so I've tried to kind of make a interactive website that gets people kind of it's like an edutainment, if you will, where there's these interactive elements that draw people in and help them learn about all of this.
Exactly. Well, let's see, should I keep
And
going? Oh, here we
yeah,
go.
yeah,
This
so
is
right here. So Synergetics University consists of four main offerings, one of them being a resource library, the other being art, posters, and infographics, another being an online course, and the last being a book and magazine. Uh, so if you scroll down a little bit,
the textbook.
so actually, if you click that, let's go straight into the textbook. So the textbook right now, as I kind of described before, actually, I'll grab a little. I have
Should I scroll down or just, yeah.
yeah. So the textbook itself, it is basically a full course in synergetics and displays a lot of the art actually there's a lot of art in it that isn't even on my website, and uh, it gives kind of a comprehensive outline of synergetics in a youthful and artistic way. The magazine was a concept that I had that I developed for the design science studio. Actually, this is more of a concept, and if you hover over it, yeah, it opens up
Exactly.
and you can flip through it. My idea with this is to create,
It could even be like each cohort. Well,
yeah,
that's only once a year. It could be an annual.
yeah,
Quarterly is ambitious if you had a lot of good material and you had time to edit and create it. But it's a
yeah.
great concept, right? Like you say, this is all part of what you're developing.
Yeah, so the magazine itself is more of a concept, and I don't know that that is going to go anywhere. It's more just like, if in the most ideal realm of this manifesting, it would be a full comprehensive approach to showing synergetics, and that includes these cohorts that are happening and continually creating content that, like, if you open it up again and hover over that, and then click to the right one,
Yeah.
uh, there's all of this content, like what happens in our Zoom rooms and everything that we talk about that goes unshared. Like, it, once the Zoom meeting's over, or once the cohort is done, a lot of the educational resources and conversations that were had kind of
Yeah,
just,
there's so much material.
yeah.
There's so many good things to glean from it. Totally, I agree.
So
And then though,
yeah, here we go.
this is where I'm really excited. And of course, you have a signature style, and your ability to communicate three-dimensional geometry and two-dimensional images is just beyond belief. Look, I have to scroll. I don't know why. Oh, I see. They turned white, and that one was stuck white. Okay, look at that. The relationship. I'm sorry. I digress. But right at the very top, the three images I'm looking, and you see the phi ratio in the stellated dodecahedron. So I'm going to let you take over again, but talk about the significance of your graphics.
Yeah, so a lot of these I draw in AutoCAD, like drafting software. And so I'll be able to rotate these 3D models and like get the perspective that I want. And so I construct them all, and then and based on what I'm trying to convey, try to show perspectives that lead people through an educational process. Uh, and I with some things like that one right there, the top right, the rhombic tricantahedron and the rhombic hexacantahedron, and the relationship to the E modules of synergetics. So,
Let's see. I went to show it big, but it didn't seem to work, right?
oh, that should work.
Right?
Not sure why.
I don't know
Not
what
sure why it's not.
with this, but we can see it anyway. Anyway,
Yeah. So, like with that, it's like taking a pretty complex idea and trying to simplify it into the most basic graphical explanations. And it's been a great practice for me to like really understand how infographics work, how to convey knowledge in the most concise way. So with like that, Bucky talked about how these design patterns can be uh, quantized, how all, since nature is made up of finite energy packets, those finite energy packets follow these vectors of economy, and those vectors of economy can be then uh, seen as polyhedra, and those polyhedra can be quantized down into what he called modules. And so he talked about like the A and B modules, which break the tetrahedron and octahedron down. The E module, which is shown in that top right one, is breaking down the rhombic tricantahedron.
oh, there it
And
is. And so you're
and
talking
what's
about this tetrahedron here, which is you can see is even divided up into smaller tetrahedrons. So those
yeah,
are the
so
modules.
yeah,
So,
so
so there it is. There you can
yep,
see the one triangle of the module, and then what you can see though is that that triangle is symmetrical to the other five, except for mirror images and
Yeah.
not. So there's wait, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's and that then creates this three-dimensional module that creates, I know it's so graphically amazing to communicate such a complex geometry, right? And
So this shows how when you nest the rhombic triacantahedron, which has phi ratio rhombuses as faces, uh, when you nest that into the rhombic hexacantahedron, which is the red polyhedron, you can fit 12 around into the 12 divots of the rhombic hexacantahedron. And if you take away the triacantahedrons and only leave the gold,
module, that section,
yeah, the gold cluster of E modules,
you'll make a
all of a
new,
sudden
bigger
you
one.
create a phi ratio scaled rhombic triacantahedron that is, phi ratio larger than the original white one on
Yep.
top left.
You end up from here to there.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable and so significant on so many levels that, and especially like in my research and work, and there's the Becker-Hagen's Earth grid that's based on a rhombic triacantahedron, and the idea is that this is an evolution of the Earth's energy grid that's taking place. So, like by understanding this rhombic triacantahedron-ness of by the Earth's energy body, our energy body, and its deeper significance, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna exit out of that particular one, and then I'm gonna scroll down more because especially in Synergetics, one of the biggest things that he talks about over and over and over are these great circles, which
Yeah.
you see all through here. And this is one of the easiest ways to picture the great circle, just the great circles of the cube octahedron, or what Bucky called the vector equilibrium. So you start to see very simple, and those are diameters, but then when you look at these other, and you really break it down in these diagrams
Yeah. If you
so clearly.
click the 31 great circles of the icosahedron. And so this took me a while to understand what he was even trying to convey. This was some of the harder graphics that I did, I think, because I didn't quite understand why this was important. And it's actually quite simple. And when I made the graphics, I realized how simple it is, and that it's that if you spin any polyhedron according to their topological characteristics, like if you spin it on a vertex or spin it on an edge, it'll create a spin equator, and those spin equators are the great circles that lie on the surface of a sphere. And so the icosahedron happens to have 31 great circles that lay on the surface of a sphere, and provides the blueprint for the most economic movement of energy on the surface of a sphere. And so between any 2 points on a sphere, the most economic way to travel from any 2 points on a sphere is a great circle arc. And so yeah, Bucky breaks this down and like provides a lot of significant examples of why this is important, and it helps to then further this development of quantizing nature's coordinate system, and how we can start to efficiently design artifacts that use less resources and provide more life support.
So anyway, I'm just going to go to the next,
Yeah.
which is, I think that's now the 25 great circles of the vector equilibrium. That's interesting. And I was thinking there has to be great circles for each. I don't know if you have one for the dodecahedron. That's what I was thinking, but
I don't have one. I have the spherical dodecahedron. I think there's a graphic close to all these ones that shows like the spherical polyhedra. Oh, this shows how the 31 great circles provide the framework for other various spherical polyhedra.
Yeah, it's amazing. Look, and so in some ways, yeah, your graphics are it could be you took you so long to figure out, and now you're communicating this in a clear way. But it takes even for people that are starting to see these and look at them right now. It even for myself, who I've known about this concept for a long time, to understand these great circles. This is actually this is pretty amazing. Here you do have, and it's funny. There's you have it for the rhombic dodecahedron, which of course is the dual to the cuboctahedron. But I don't, and I it would actually. Uh, a pentagonal dodecahedron is so not great circles, but it is. It just doesn't have any diameter circles. Wouldn't there be? There would be like circles. Oh, so wait, a great circle always a diameter? It has to be around the equator.
A great circle, always a diameter.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
know,
sure.
always it's always it's an equator. It divides any great circle is right at the divides the sphere in half because otherwise
Yeah. Mhm.
circle so a
Great circle,
dodecahedron.
a great circle, like the circle's center always passes through the center of the sphere.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's a diameter.
anything,
That's what I meant. It's on the diameter. It's the center.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a full. It's an equator. They're all equators
yeah.
of the sphere, dividing the sphere in half. So that's why the dodecahedron doesn't have great circles.
Well, yeah, no, the dodecahedron would have a great circles. Basically, if you spun the dodecahedron around its topological characteristics, like just like you did with the icosahedron, you could create a great circle network like we saw with the icosahedron.
And speaking of dodecahedron, I know there's you're it's just unbelievable. You know, and this you don't have to, this is accessible through your website. Anyone watching this and wanting to learn or just look at these, like look at this incredible nesting of all of these polyhedra going from an outer dodecahedron where it's truncating
Yeah,
at the middle at the yellow, it's halfway, which is such a significant shape, the Icosa dodecahedron, 20 triangles and 12 pentagons, and then through to the final icosahedron.
what I
This
love
is
about like things like this graphic and the ideas of like truncation and all these things is how there's this intertransformability in all of these geometries where if you have a dodecahedron, all of a sudden you have all of the ingredients that you need to speak all of those other design pattern languages like Icosa dodecahedron and the icosahedron and everything. So yeah, and here's truncating the icosahedron
to
to
the
the
down.
dodecahedron.
Oh, wow, that's right. Except for, and you only did this one in two steps as opposed to the three steps of the other. I don't remember seeing these. These are such important shapes that I talk about, you know, in presenting three-dimensional geometry and understanding the relationship between these. So
What I'd like to do with these is create 3D models that people can spin and like look at this like because this is just one view. You're looking down the vertex of the icosahedron here. Uh,
what is the in between step? Why did you leave this one out? If you start to how does I wish you had made that one because this one is halfway in between these two, but what's halfway between this and this is the Icosa dodecahedron?
it's basically the same. If you go back to the graphic before,
Oh,
it's the same. It's only missing the truncated dodecahedron, and I didn't include
it's
it.
this one right here, the purple one.
Yeah, that truncated dodecahedron, I think it's
Yes,
called.
yeah,
Uh, and it's only missing that one. I didn't include it in that other one because what I remember, maybe the perspective, it just didn't look right in there, and
yeah. I can
also it's
imagine it would look weird, but it's just an interesting shape because it's made of dodecagons and equilateral triangles. And it's a
mhm,
shape you don't really normally see or think about or know about, where you truncate all the pentagons into perfect dodecagons. And so
decagons, I believe.
yeah, I mean decagons. I said dodecagons,
Yeah,
but I meant you take the pentagons and truncate them into decagons, 10-sided shapes,
yeah.
which you see right there. It's so, oh man, it's so beautiful to interact with your work. It's so easy to wow. I,
Yeah, that one there shows how the icosahedron and the dodecahedron can relate through the rhombic hexacontahedron. and uh, and then it's okay. Talking about these things is also kind of a tongue twister sometimes. Uh, I also the relationship of the Icosa dodecahedron to them both as well. Having things like this as a 3D model would be really helpful, just so I
What
could show the intricacies
what
of
is
them.
the red shape? I can't
Icosa,
figure that out.
it's an icosahedron.
It's just and it's just that's weird, and especially at the resolute. But and oh, I see what's happening. All of its struts are hidden behind these
Yeah,
struts, and then all you could see is the down triangle, and all of the other struts are hidden behind these struts.
yeah,
That just and then you show them here, but it doesn't read three-dimensionally
yeah,
because the maybe the back struts anyway. It's also
totally.
just yeah this low res digital anyway. Oh my God, this is in. Thank you for sharing this for the book. And I don't know. I mean, it's not like what we're doing today is a sacred geometry workshop, which is what Casey could do, and we could spend so much time dissecting each of these. But that's just look at this, and also everything we've been talking about takes a long time to think about and look about. Like I remember, like Casey said, it took him a long time. So don't expect by just looking at these to fully understand them. Which is why I come back to them. This one, just starting with the cube and the star tetrahedron and the cube octahedron. Oh my God. Um, I don't know. It's so much fun. I'm just going fast through them now. Oh my, here, this one. Might as well maybe if you want to talk about this or guide us through the rest of your website or whatever you want to focus on because you're so talented and multifaceted.
Yeah, here maybe just close out of the that
I,
graphic, and this
I,
is
I just want to know briefly what this
oh
one
yeah,
is. It doesn't have a title.
okay,
It's the
yeah,
intersection of two spheres overlapping at their centers.
yeah.
Unbelievable.
So this is just showing basically the three-dimensional vesica Pisces and showing what the measurements that arise out of that. One, the numbers that really arise a lot that I found in geometry and a lot of these relationships is like the square root of 3, the square root of 5, square root of 2, phi, uh, and yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this one, but there's just these reoccurring numbers that happen
Yeah,
in
it is.
a lot of these.
Yep, I know. It takes a lot to study, and it's fact that you did all that work. So here we're just gonna look. I don't know how much time should we scroll through more of this whole section because this section of your website, is just amazing.
Thanks. Yeah. And yeah, so
And of course, this is under the textbook section of it, but it's also under your design section.
yeah, under my design section. Yep.
All right. Well, anyway, tell me, if you want to talk more about some of these graphics or talk more about whatever, how you see, all of this coming together for you or any of your other, art or design work.
Yeah, maybe do you want to I can show you sort of the other aspects of actually here we click that one in the top left there, the 24.
Yeah.
That's the modules that I was talking about. So Bucky really emphasized the importance of the A modules, and I think it's maybe what he talked about most throughout Synergetics is these 24 modules that actually like all polyhedra can be quantized into these uh, module relationships, whether it's A and B modules or E modules. And so this is a very fundamental, important part of Synergetics right here.
Yeah, and so clearly explained, and so clear to see how you just need one of those or its mirror image, and then you repeat them both 12 times.
Yeah.
It's very yeah. They're six to a face, four faces, 24. Beautiful,
Yeah.
and yeah, and like you say, it's beautiful in just its pure geometry, but then this really does, and even the title of the book, Synergetics, is the geometry of thinking. And
Yeah.
it's really relating this more to the fact that existence and space is thought, and this is how you divide it up by thinking about it. And it's really profound. And then, taking it all the way to how we can apply this, to the overarching principles of Buckminster Fuller, to make the world work for everyone, the
Yeah.
best in everything.
Yeah, he talks about how, there's these star events. He talks about the things that happen that are perceivable are these like star events, and we relate those star events uh, together, and so the relationships between star events, in order for them to be considered, have to be at least one tetrahedron, he says. And so, since all experience can be, in its fundamental form, at least one tetrahedron, and one tetrahedron can then be subdivided into these quantas, the A modules, uh, then his idea was that all experience is thus able to be constellated and understand as a non simultaneously partially overlapping network of events. And it is a polyhedra. It is a polyhedron. And because it's a polyhedron with an uncountable amount of vertexes, because there's an uncountable uh, amount of events happening, that it's all being structured and ordered and falling into these pathways of economy, and that nature expresses itself and orders itself through these patterns, this pattern language of economy. And so the more that we can understand that pattern language of economy, the more that we can apply what these polyhedra are telling us into novel expressions of health, wealth, and well-being. Um, so
I'm just scrolling through. It just keeps going. You have so many illustrations in here that
yeah.
each one you could spend like an hour studying and understanding or talking about.
Oh,
And it
click the
seems,
rhombic cube octahedron one right there.
yep.
So
Okay.
this one was really awesome because like I learned how, if you see on the right there, it starts with the white cube at the top, and then you explode all the faces out, and all of a sudden you have the you have the parameters that you need for a rhombic cube octahedron. And then if you take the triangle faces and collapse them down into each other, it creates the octahedron. And so not only is truncation a thing that you can find intertransformability through, and stellation, but also this explosion and
Well,
implosion.
it'd be cool to have both, show both of them and have them both explode inside of each
Mm.
other. It'd be hard to do to be, transparent, but that's so amazing. And there's that truncation that I have in my going from a cube to a dodecahedron that you can truncate off the edges,
Uh-huh.
and that's a really, well, that's truncation. That's not the exploding.
Yeah.
It's weird. This is yeah.
Well, and you can see in the bottom left there that if you truncate the rhombic dodecahedron, you get the rhombic cuboctahedron. If you truncate all the vertexes of the rhombic
Yep.
dodecahedron.
The other relationship. It's the relationships are just, yeah. It's so, like I say, I went to the next one, not to out of it, because there's like, it's unbelievable complex, and we could grab any which one. Although now we're getting to the bottom, and we can
Yeah.
see some
This
of
is
your older
yeah.
graphic art and other things that. So it's funny. But it keeps going and going and going. So I think we're at the bottom, and there you with your
Yeah.
logo rotating. So I want to kind of bounce back up, but it's kind of a journey through your graphic arts. And here you can see that you actually sit and draw it, as well as, of course, figured out how to do it digitally, which I think you've become a master of. And you start to get into these. Like, I love this one of the cube. Oh my God, look at this. A cube
Yeah.
divided into smaller cubes, but the cube It's so hard to see, has its star tetrahedrons etched
This
in.
was a hard one, and you actually corrected me on
Yeah,
a
but there's
previous
some
version I
lightness
had
and
of this.
darkness that's not making it pop 3D properly. There, you need
Yeah,
to,
this
there, it's missing. Yeah. So anyway, you came back to it and fixed it. I have a great graphic you did of the star tetrahedrons without the cubes, though. And I don't here. This
yeah.
let's go to this one. This is cool to show the relationship, the frequencies, the concept of frequency.
Yeah, so yeah, showing how each triangular face of an icosahedron can then be uh, broken or expanded into more omnitriangulated. And so the more that you triangulate the faces of the icosahedron, you get these more higher frequencies. The thing about this is maybe that we don't have context for in this conversation yet is this arises through sphere packing, and through sphere packing, uh,
Yeah, I can go to that graphic if
yeah,
you
maybe
want.
go to that graphic
I
because
know, but the what's so great about this one is people are very familiar with these geodesic domes that they see built,
yeah,
and what this clearly shows is how it comes from the icosahedron, which is the majority of geodesic domes. But there are some domes that start with other geometries, and then it's getting spherized. But it's true, the closest packing, and that's one of my favorite. I don't know where it is in here. Do you know where?
yeah, it's pretty
This is
far up.
this one. It is, and that one starts to. Uh,
There's one that shows the sphere packing with the cube octahedrons. Yeah, right
this one
there.
right there.
Yeah. So
What a
if you
beautiful graphic too to show this complex idea.
if you take one sphere and you pack 12 around it, they'll all 12 all 13 spheres will be touching each other at these kissing points. Uh, if you were to remove the nuclear sphere, which actually you can see what would happen with the vector flexor. So imagine this is the cube octahedron but the packed spheres. Imagine there's a sphere at every vertex and a sphere in the center.
Here, let me quickly stop the share so we could see your amazing vector flexor. So as you saw, the closest packing of spheres makes that shape. So now
Yeah.
imagine each vertex is a sphere, but there's the one in the middle
Yeah.
gets removed
You
and
remove the one in the middle
they
and it
all roll
collapses
on
on itself.
themselves.
So when it collapses, it rotates down, and there's enough space for 6 more vectors to be inserted, and it's kind of hard to see.
It's just crossing the diamond openings. I could
Yeah,
showing clearly right between the green and green or purple and purple, and
yeah,
you add that and it makes the icosahedron. It
yeah.
makes those into equilateral triangles. So that's the next phase removed of the closest packing, which is a weird thing. And yeah, it's and then all the way down, and then
Yeah, so you can collapse. That this wouldn't happen with spheres, but with the vector flexor, you can see how the rhombic, uh, I mean, how the cube octahedron collapses into the icosahedron and then down into the octahedron, and then you can create the tetrahedron from there.
yeah, that is an amazing Bucky way of showing things. And I'm going to go back into the graphic that we were looking at, closest packing, and then we can, we don't have too much more time. We want to wrap up. So if you wanted to just talk about anything else, in the website or
Yeah,
you
let's
did a pretty,
just quickly go to the resources page.
yeah, that's a big part of what you're launching.
Yeah. So with all of this, I realized like there's not enough free educational resources out there about all of this, and I wanted to create a database of digital assets related to Synergetics. So there's a little tab for video where I have like one video, but we're not going to go there.
Yeah,
We'll go down here. So here you'll see free downloads of free PNGs and vector graphics that people can use in educational ways, or for whatever reason. I made them to be open source, like Creative Commons. And I also created Synergetics resources where I put tons of links and
Is that
other resources that people can learn more and dive deeper into all this. I created a bibliography right there where it gives a list of books that people, if they're interested in all this, they can go deeper. And
wow? Each one of these, if we click, are populated or starting to be more populated with all of this stuff. It's amazing, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
So if you want to just click on like go
Which
up,
one?
click the just click the tetrahedron one.
Okay. And what's it doing? Why is it? Oh, I have to click here. You have to click up. It's not the image. Click the text, and there it goes.
Yeah, so I then create a little bit of an introduction to give a little bit of an education on the
Ah,
tetrahedron, and then there's a free graphic that people can download and save and use however they want.
yep, with a great little yes. Are these the other ones? Oh yeah, here you can just quickly jump to other ones too.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and
Well, I want to go
that-
to the isotropic vector matrix. Although it's just the 2D, it's the
yeah,
2D version of it. Remember, we worked on if you want to see the 3D one, you have to get my book. We worked hard on this one. All right, so let's see. Let's jump back, or let's see. We've looked at all these. Well, right now, how do we go back? Wait, this is back. Well, we're in Synergetics University, and of course, caseyhouse.com is the umbrella one, but
yeah. There's no button back to it. I made it kind of a little
a
trap to
detour. It's a
keep people
detour.
in.
Just go back.
You'll
All
just
right.
have to.
Although I do want to go back because it is such a great, although it's not even here, so we have to just go back, to end there because it's a great way to jump into Synergetic U, which you can do directly, right? You have the domain, I think Synergetic U, which is great, and here I don't know. This was, I guess, what you've been working on, where you have your design and photo, video, but we don't. I don't know. We don't need to look at those. Anyone has the link to caseyhouse.com, explore his
So
work and website, and just to like kind of wrap up our talk, about what you're doing, what I'm doing, how we're overlapping, and you know any other comments, because it's really the idea behind Portal to the New Earth, the idea behind Synergetic U is to get people inspired to see the fundamental principles of what the universe operates on, and then to employ them both for your inner awakening, your metaphysical understanding, and then externally to build this, to start this, and like Bucky said, you don't change things by in the system that they were created. You make a new model. So we're working on the new model. So let's get back to all of Bucky's ideas and how we're employing all this.
so that was one of the reasons why I named it Syn U, the Syn dash U, because my thought with it is like it's like the sinew that holds this body of
Wow, the
the body
poetic
of
license.
the new earth together. It's how we
Oh,
uh,
that's amazing.
how we hold that body together, and I think that's why I really see this work as that important. I see Bucky's work as that important. It's the thing that I really have faith that will lead us into a more considerate and sustainable future.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny I said poetic license, but just the poetry of the name. And I never made that connection. And, Bucky and a lot of people talk about that words, with their, have deep roots. And of course, synergetics and synergy are words that he basically coined. And
Yeah,
there's such powerful concepts. I mean, that it's, it really is. How the universe operates is coming together synergetically all the time, that each of the pieces creates something greater than each of them separately, and it's such a guiding force to what we're doing right now. So I can't recommend to people enough to follow Casey's work, and when I actually can't wait for the university to be open, and I'm going to take the courses. It's going to be great to just go through and study all of this stuff really easily and clearly, and
yeah.
really glad.
Thank you, Harlan. And I just like one last thing is like, you know, when I first came across Synergetics and this work, I kind of thought it was like a very dry scientific kind of thing. but after reading both of the books and letting it work on my inner world, I've come to realize how deeply spiritual it is, and how it's given me these spiritual tools to meet a lot of the unknowns in my life and a lot of the daunting things about the world with a bit of grace and trust that there's something being expressed here that is beyond any one of us individually, and that there's something gestating and coming to the surface that the more that I stay focused on the parts of the universe that need tending to, the more uh, mm, that the divine essence, or whatever you want, the universe, the cosmos will begin to express itself more coherently through us. We will become local limbs of the cosmos, if you will.
Absolutely. Of course, Buckminster Fuller loves the word trim tab. Each one of us becomes the trim tab to guide us towards this positive future.
Yeah.
And he is just so inspiring. And, it's not for everyone, but who knows who may be listening to this podcast and hasn't looked at Synergetics, and you go, it's so, like you said, it's hard to find a hard copy of it. Super easy to go online and read
Yeah.
any part of it. It's all there. I will have the
Yeah.
link, for it. But, and then, if you resonate, like you say, it set both of us on our paths, and can't recommend it enough to help us all. On
For those of the people watching that have never read Synergetics or come across Bucky's work, it is hard to find a physical copy, but Robert Gray
there's two
put.
sites that have it, right?
Oh, is there two now?
Someone else, I think you did. What's the name anyway? Yeah, maybe not.
It's
The
like
one.
RW
Yeah,
Gray
that's the one.
Project.
The link will
Yeah.
be, yeah. Clearly, we have to. Well, I I was going to say if you know it exactly, but yeah, it's under R.W. Gray. I don't have the URL right now to read it out
Yeah.
loud, but
Yeah.
you
The
can
full
find it.
text, he combined both books. So Synergetics 1 and 2 were released
And
separately,
they were
but they're meant.
numbered though. Every chapter had these very, very specific numbering system. So, like you say, it's so easily accessible to get both volumes integrated into one
Yeah.
volume. So,
The numberings on both books kind of like interlocked, where you they correspond to each other. The numbering in the second book is like
yeah, he
overlapping with
basically, the
the
second book was his expanding on the first book, and on all sections. It's
yeah.
really, it's amazing. It's mind blowing. And yeah,
And
not for everyone, but
if
amazing.
anybody's looking for like a book that's published, that's the most easy onboarding to it. He wrote. There was a book that he wrote that was published post after he died called Cosmography,
Right.
and that's possibly one of my favorites of
It's
his
online
books.
also. I started
Is
reading
it?
now online easily. Yeah, you can find it as a
Nice.
PDF online. And then, of
Yeah.
course, Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth, which was written, I think, in the late 60s, but that's one of his most accessible books. It's a complete, opposite type of book than Synergetics. He
Yeah.
produced so many books throughout the course of his life. Synergetics was towards the end of his life in the 70s, that he just wanted to get everything out in a very complex but organized way.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, like you said, that's what brought us together, and it's a big part of our work. And so glad to spend this time with you today, Casey. And of course, in the future, we'll definitely be doing other conversations, I'm sure, as
Yeah.
we continue on this. But thanks everyone for listening or watching, and of course, remember to like, subscribe, share with your friends. We're sort of trying to reach as many people to help this awakening of the new Earth in the most beautiful and harmonious way. So until the next video or podcast, thanks for joining us today. And thank you, Casey.
Thank you,
Bye.
Harlan.